Good evening and welcome to this week's meeting of the Norwood Board of Selectmen. Today is Thursday, March 15th, 2018. Let the record show that members are present. Mrs. Steele cannot attend tonight, and along with we have 4 members of the school committee, superintendent of schools, and the town manager. Pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll get a couple things out of the way first. We'll have you reconvene your group, okay? So, you have nothing on the licenses and permits. Anything on announcements, Mr. Salvo?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize.
Mr. Bramhall, you got anything?
No.
Mr. Flaherty?
I have nothing.
There's an announcement from the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles will be temporarily closed for several days. Registry services will be unavailable from 7 p.m. March 22nd until 8 a.m. March 26th. The RMV is transforming its business processes and replacing its mainframe computer system with new modern technology to deliver exceptional customer service for residents and businesses, along with teaching their people how to smile. No, I said that.
They'll be open after March 26th, but the computers won't work.
Yeah. There you go. Well, and I thought I was bad, so. Okay. Let's see if I have anything else here. I don't think I do. Nope. Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, we have Lucia Longhurst, the town clerk, here to talk about the annual town elections and the possible future election location.
Good evening.
How are you?
Polling place, school versus St. Mary's. Michael and I went to St. Mary's, and sitting down talking, I believe the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. There's a lot to the setup there because of the bingo. There's like, I don't know, I'd say 75 tables in there with 8 chairs at each table, which would require the DPW to take everything down and then reset everything up again, and to the point where there is a stick to exact measure the distance between each table. To get out of there, there's just one way out for the one-way street on there. It's also going to cost, they want to charge us, obviously, waive a 10% service charge that the town charges them based on how many elections. The floors, they're very particular about their floors, to be careful not to scratch anything, which is understandable. The only thing that I can see an advantage of is the school would store and deliver the equipment for us unless we wanted to store our own equipment here. We'd save money on police details at St. Mary's because for the school we'd need additional security. And they would give us a key to the building to set up and get in there and get out whenever we need to. If there are any religious beliefs, because it's at a church, that is one of the reasons you may absentee vote. You can take out an absentee ballot. My recommendations are this. I would like to see the annual town election be moved to Saturdays, and it would save money, and we could cut hours down on a Saturday. I think we would get a much better turnout on that. If we had it at the school, then school is closed. To keep elections at the school on the even numbers of the years, there's the state primary and the state election. On the odd numbers, there is just the annual town election. And then when you get into the presidential year, on the even year, the schools are closed on the presidential election. So my recommendation is to do that and to have more police. We'll get more detail for the police at the school and set up more security.
Okay, so just let's back up a bit so people understand what we're trying to do here. First of all, if this isn't another reason why we need a new town hall, this is a perfect example why we need to have another building in this town
Right.
that we can use. We are confusing the hell out of people. They don't know where to go to vote. They don't know where town meeting is half the time. There's a lot of issues happening here that we have to figure out a way to do it. And I totally get what's going on with the schools. I mean, I don't want people running around in the schools when the kids are there, and I
Right.
totally agree with that. But we've got to figure out a way in the future where we can have one building designed for elections, town, whatever town business we have to do. If we need a shelter during one of these storms, which we needed this last few weeks, we should have all of that in one place so that everybody in town knows when you're in trouble, if you're going to go vote, if whatever you're going to do, it's going to be in this one building. And it's getting to be a point where I'm getting confused about where to go. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like for people outside the community. Let's step back to St. Mary's again. Your reason for not wanting to use it is you don't have enough distance between the
Well,
precincts?
my thought, what I would have really liked is that they have the CCD classrooms. There would be enough classrooms, a room to check in one of the classrooms, and then there's an adjoining door. And you could have a check-in in one room, go through the adjoining door to place your ballot and check out. And there is enough room for the 5 precincts for that, which I think would really, really be ideal. But the problem is, when you have a busy election, you've got a hallway there, and there's going to be congestion, and a lot of people aren't
Only
going to be
one way
happy.
in and one way out.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, so St. Mary's pretty much is on.
And also for the primary at St. Mary's, we can't set up on Friday because there's bingo on the Friday night. The election, the state primary is the day after Labor Day. And so,
Okay.
you'd have to pay double time, I guess, to get people in there to set up.
So your
And it's a holiday
suggestion,
weekend.
so your suggestion is for the annual election, town elections, is to move it to a Saturday.
I'd like to see it moved. If people have religious beliefs, again, that they can do an absentee ballot. I think we're going to have a better turnout. The last uncontested, we have an uncontested election this time. Again, the last one was in 2015 with only 208 voters that day. And therefore, also, I'm asking if we can decrease the hours for this town election by a couple of hours, maybe cut it to 6 instead of 8.
Okay, well, before we get off the subject of changing the
Sorry,
date,
okay.
because, again, by charter, we're supposed to be doing things a certain way.
Yeah,
People understand what we're doing.
right.
I don't want anyone to feel like they go somewhere to take and vote and suddenly there's nobody there, or we moved it to Saturday and they're not aware of it, and I can just hear it already. And I know this race is pretty much uncontested, but is there another building anywhere in this area that we could possibly use? Now, the library we can't use because it's too
It's
small.
not big enough,
You,
right?
you wouldn't be changing April's election at all.
April's election is going to be at the school.
April will be at the high school.
So what are we talking about?
Future.
Okay. So in the future, after this next election, in the future, we would hold, what about we have nothing for state or federal this year? We do.
State, we have the state primary this year, and we have the state election this year. Next year is the odd year. The state elections go every 2 years. Next year is the odd year, so all we will have next year is an annual town election unless somebody resigns or, and you have to end up holding a special
So
election.
the primary and the election in November have to be held on the day of election day. It's a Tuesday.
Yes, oh yeah.
That has to be done on
That, when the
Tuesday.
state says that's what happens.
Where are we going to do those? We can't move that to a Saturday, so where?
No, we have, well, it's, if we stay at the school and add security, or where are we going to go for this year?
Mr. Chairman,
Good.
I've heard some towns close on those type of elections.
The schools?
The school does.
A lot of the schools do. I also sent emails out to the Mass Town clerks, And I got 22 responses, because regarding the schools and if they're holding them at the schools, I got 22 responses. 20 of them are having no problems at the schools. They're adding security. The town of Northborough, their annual town meeting is in May, and they have a meeting with their chief of police and their superintendent of schools before their next election to increase security. And the town of Barnstable, the schools, they use two of their precincts were with the schools, and the schools have asked them to find another place.
Mr. Biden?
So the Secretary of State moved, due to religious situations, moved the September primary to the opening of school Tuesday, the 4th of September. So there's curveball number one for us. Number two, the police chief, myself, the town clerk, the town manager met to discuss potentially St. Mary's, which is now really not an option anymore. And the concern that we had is just, we consistently find people in the building, walk in the building. And I understand that it's a new building. Some of our folks have never really walked the building, so we talked about, for this town election in April, that was already set, that we would potentially add more police to the actual site, and also have the actual entranceway be the auditorium entranceway only, thereby keeping people away from the cafeteria during the 4 lunches. And I think the police chief and the town clerk, I think you guys were fine with that.
Right.
For the fall, for September, if we can get a commitment to more police being involved, then, I mean, we do what we do until there's another resolution for the town. The curveball is the Tuesday, because now that, this year we were supposed to get out June 13th, I'm now on June 21st, and I think by next week I'll be on Friday the 22nd. So that's the concern, is the more days we lose at that time of the year. We bring back our staff since I've been here, the last 4 years, now going on to 5 years. We bring back our staff the Tuesday and the Wednesday, but then we get the TPC situation where we're asked not to have 300 employees come into town and 16 buses rolling. So that's the scenario for us.
Yeah, unfortunately, given the nature of the buildings of the town, the schools are the really only town buildings that we can use. Barring St. Mary's being a viable option, have we looked at the Clark Center at Wheaton?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
That's the old, it's an old gymnasium. Yeah, so it's not really into the campus. It's got access from both 140 and from 123.
It's actually incorrect. They only allow you to enter on 140 now. 123 is only an exit.
Oh,
They just changed that last year, because it was in the middle of camp that they changed it. I'm like, seriously?
yeah, no, yeah. So, but it's something that could be viable. I don't know if Wheaton, what the cost would be that would be allocated, or if they'd be interested in it, but it's something to think about.
I'll call them tomorrow.
The other option that I put back on the table is to move it to the middle school, because the middle school's got a back parking lot to the side where the water treatment plant is, and it's got an actual entrance right there. So no one could come through the cafeteria into the gym. They'd have to use that one door, exit and entrance, and one police officer. You'd have to have somebody outside, because that is a difficult time to get in and out at the beginning of school, at the end of school, but it might actually be, there's less ability for people to go elsewhere.
Getting back to my original comment, though, I think my concern is people not understanding where the elections are.
Right.
And if we move it to the middle school now, that's just another
Right.
change that we've made. If we need to bring in police manpower to do the job right until we can figure something else out, I don't think we have any other choice. And my number one priority, and I know it's everyone at this table, is to make sure these schools are protected. We don't want to make sure anything happens. But if we could figure out a way to funnel people in and out of that high school without disrupting the rest of the school and the cafeteria and all of that, if there's just a way to kind of control that front door somehow and make it all happen with additional police details, I think that's the only way we can do it at this point. I don't want to confuse the people And I don't want people to not know where they can vote when they want to vote.
Will we be required, if we do change the polling location, we're required by state law, we have to notify all registered voters, and we have to send out postcards to them, telling them that the polling location is going to change.
So it's another expense.
Yeah, it's
The
going
money we're
to
gonna
be
spend on
about
postage, we might as well spend on
$2,300.
police officers, if that's what it takes. Dr. Valletta?
I don't know what, what the projection is for the primary. I don't see a lot of contentious races going on statewide right now in Massachusetts for the primary on Tuesday.
It's crazy.
So, I mean, for me, my biggest concern on that day is that it's the opening of school, so it's got that flavor that could cause some people to be really angry, but I don't anticipate that there's going to be a lot of primary participation.
No, I
The
don't.
election, I mean, we can go back to the November calendar and consider closing on the 7th,
Is-
that Tuesday, for the purposes of allowing the town to continue to look at potential ways to resolve this issue. I mean, it is what it is, so far I felt comfortable. I think it's really important for us to say that we've had no problems in terms of, this is just a continuation of, it's one way in, one way out of that building, in terms of onto the main drag. And there's a lot of traffic congestion already in the morning, and the concern is for a general election that there'd be more of that, and people don't end up voting because they turn around, they're so frustrated with it. So we can look at that.
We've also, for these small elections, we're using half of the gym. We're not taking the whole gym, and that seems to be working out fine, except the volleyball when the ball comes over and
Yeah, we
hit a voter.
We'll resolve that. It's usually, sometimes easier depending on the time of the year. I think it's really important that it's about it is in our perspective, an increase in manpower in terms of PD would probably help to resolve
Right.
our nervousness about the situation. I'll defer to the school committee.
And also, there will be, for the state election, there will be early voting again, so they're going to have their 10 days of early voting again, so that might cut a lot of the slack. They're trying to pass through legislature early voting for the primary, but they haven't made a decision on that yet.
Mr. Bramwell?
We have no choice on the April election. We put extra police and we protect the building. I don't see a problem in the future if the middle school is a better alternative for the school department. I think as long as we notify the voters, we've changed polling places before, and people seem to find their way. They have to be, they're voting. They should be educated. They have to pay attention. We've got to notify them. And the notification is a one-time deal. The extra police details is every election. So once they get used to going to a new place, that's it. We're not going to notify them for every election. As far as St. Mary's goes, I did help reassemble the gym after bingos on Friday nights. And you don't want to do that.
No.
They're extremely particular.
Yes.
Even so much that
Got to use
they
the
can
stick, right?
The stick.
the stick, and even to the point where they know whether or not it's the right table in the right place.
Wow.
I don't think that the church is the right venue for it anyway. And, in hindsight, I just don't, I appreciate that they're offered to help us, but I just don't think it's the right place to do it. And get through the November one, like we talked about, with the additional personnel. And then if we're still talking about this next spring, maybe we advertise a Saturday instead next April, instead of the Tuesday that we normally have it on.
Yes, we'd have to change the bylaw for that, though.
Maybe
It's not a
we'll figure it
go-
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, at some point, we got to get real here and try to figure out if we can handle all these situations that in this last couple of weeks has been frustrating as hell. People saying, where do I go if it's an emergency? We have to go to the Wamsutta School over in Attleboro. What the hell is that?
Yeah,
In a snowstorm, where am I going to find that?
that's right.
So we've got to figure out a way where we have one centralized location that the town side of government can function, where we know no matter what happens, you go to the point A and that's it. That's where you got to go. And we got to figure out how to do that in the future. But in the meantime, I think the extra police details will work, and then we'll work with the school committee. I really feel bad about, and I agree with you, Brad, that here it is the first day of school, and now we're going to, 300 or 400 people in the mix on top of it all. It's just going to be a mess, no matter how we do it. But if we can designate in the future, we do everything at the middle school gymnasium, where it has its own entranceway, own way in and out of there, and that's it. You know, again, we've got the same issue. We've got one way in and one way out.
Right.
So it's still a problem, no matter how you look at it. Every
Right.
school we seem to have that issue, no matter where we look at it. But let's deal with April 1st.
Right.
And if it's okay with the superintendent and school committee, we'll bring on additional personnel to make sure the buildings are secure and just deal with that to the best